A single drop of pond water can hold a bear with 8 legs, a living glass jewel, and a one-celled trumpet that can rebuild itself after being damaged. That sounds like fantasy art, but these are real microscopic organisms. Some are animals, some are single cells, some live in your bed, your fish tank, or the green film on a rock. And under a microscope, they look less like tiny versions of familiar life and more like nature testing impossible designs. The first one is the famous one, but it is still strange every time you actually look at it. A tardigrade looks like a gummy bear that was given claws and sent crawling through moss. It has a rounded body, 8 stubby legs, and little hooks at the ends that grip wet surfaces. It is often called a water bear, but it is not a bear and it is not trying to be cute. It is a tiny animal built for a world that disappears. Tardigrades often live in thin films of water around moss, lichens, soil, and freshwater sediment. To them, a patch of moss is not dry or wet in the way we imagine. It is a forest that can suddenly lose its ocean. When the water vanishes, the tardigrade cannot just walk away to a river. Its whole body is small enough that drying out is an emergency. So it changes shape. The legs pull in, the body contracts. The animal becomes a tight, barrel-like form called a ton. In that state, its life processes slow dramatically, and it can wade through conditions that would destroy an active animal. The weird part is not that the tardigrade is indestructible. Active tardigrades are still living animals with limits. The weird part is that when the world becomes hostile, it can become almost like a packed-away version of itself. Then water returns. The little barrel swells, the legs extend, the claws search for grip. The animal that looked like a speck of dead dust starts crawling again. The monster movie version of tardigrades is that they laugh at space and radiation. The real version is better. They are tiny moss animals that survive because their habitat repeatedly becomes a disaster zone. Now shrink the drama even more and meet an animal whose face looks like 2 spinning wheels. Rotifers are often called wheel animals. Under the microscope, the front end seems to rotate, as if the creature has a pair of mechanical fans on its head. But there are no wheels. The illusion is made by rings of beating cilia, tiny hair-like structures that move in coordinated waves. Those waves pull water toward the mouth, dragging in bacteria, algae, and organic particles. A rotifer can look like a transparent vacuum cleaner with organs inside. You may see a foot anchoring it to a surface. You may see jaws inside the head, working like little grinding tools. The mouth current brings food in, and the internal machinery crushes it. Some rotifers, especially belloid rotifers, are also masters of drying out. When water leaves their tiny world, they can enter a dormant state and survive desiccation. One bedelloid rotifer recovered from ancient Arctic permafrost was revived after roughly 24,000 years frozen in the ground, then reproduced in the lab. That does not mean every rotifer is a time traveler. It means the body plan is shockingly good at pausing life when the environment stops cooperating. A wheel animal is not a machine. It is a tiny survivor with a feeding system so visual that it looks engineered. The third impossible creature is not an animal at all, but it earns its place because it looks like a living snowflake made of glass. Diatoms are single-celled algae wrapped in shells of silica, the same basic material found in glass. Their shells are called frustules, and they can look like pillboxes, needles, stars, boats, coins, or ornate windows. Some have pores arranged with a precision that looks carved. Some look like jewelry from a civilization smaller than a grain of sand. But the glass shell is not decoration. It is armor, architecture, and identity. The tiny holes allow exchange with the water around the cell. The rigid pattern helps protect the diatom while still letting light reach the photosynthetic machinery inside. Diatoms float in oceans, lakes, and streams. They are part of the phytoplankton, the drifting plant-like life that turns sunlight and carbon dioxide into living matter. To a copepod, a diatom may be food. To the planet, diatoms are part of the system that moves carbon through the ocean and helps support aquatic food webs. The impossible part is the contrast. Something too small to see with your naked eye can build a glass case more intricate than a cathedral window. And it does this not once as a miracle, but constantly, across waters all over Earth. Now imagine a creature shaped like a comma, with long antennae and one red eye in the middle of its head. It jerks through the water so fast it seems to teleport. That is a copepod. Copepods are tiny crustaceans, relatives of crabs and shrimp, but many are so small that they live as plankton. Some are clear enough that you can see the gut and eggs inside. Their antennae sweep out from the head like extra limbs. In many, a simple central eye gives them the cyclops look that makes them instantly recognizable. They do not glide smoothly like fish. They hang in the water, then snap away. Their escape jumps can launch them many body lengths in a fraction of a second. At their scale, water is not the thin fluid we imagine swimming through. It is thick, grabby, and full of signals. A nearby predator pushes water before it arrives. The copepod senses that disturbance and fires its body like a spring-loaded speck. This is why the jump looks unnatural. You are seeing a tiny animal solve a physics problem. If it swims constantly, it creates a trail. If it waits too long, it gets eaten. So it becomes a punctuation mark in the water, still, then gone. The fifth creature is the one living closest to you. A dust mite looks like a translucent bag with 8 legs and no face you would want to recognize. It is an arachnid, related to spiders and ticks, but it is far smaller and softer looking. Under magnification, its body can appear wrinkled and pale, like a tiny inflated creature crawling through fibers. Dust mites do not bite you like bedbugs. Their world is house dust, bedding, carpets, upholstery, and the humid pockets inside fabric. Their food is mostly organic debris, including shed skin scales from people and pets, often altered by microbes in the dust. To us, a pillow is a soft object. To a dust mite, it is a landscape of fibers, flakes, moisture, and shelter. The impossible visual is that your ordinary bedroom contains arachnids that look like they belong in an alien soil sample. But their existence is completely practical. We shed skin constantly. Fabric traps it. Humidity keeps tiny bodies from drying out. The mite is not invading a strange place. It is living in a food web that we accidentally build around ourselves. Now leave the bedroom and return to fresh water, where a creature that looks like a tiny sea monster waits with tentacles spread. Hydra are small freshwater animals related to jellyfish and corals. They are not always strictly microscopic because some can be seen as tiny threads or specks with careful eyes, but their true strangeness appears under magnification. A hydra has a tubular body, a foot that attaches to surfaces, and tentacles around the mouth. It looks like a plant until it grabs something. The tentacles carry stinging cells called cnidocytes. Each one is a microscopic weapon. When triggered, it can fire a tiny structure into prey, such as small crustaceans or larvae. The hydra then bends the captured animal toward its mouth and swallows it into a body that is basically a living tube. Then comes the part that makes hydra feel unreal. If damaged, they can regenerate missing parts. Cut a hydra and the remaining tissue can reorganize and regrow a body plan. Scientists study them because they maintain active stem cell populations and can rebuild structures that most animals cannot. Hydra are not magical. They are simple in shape, with tissues arranged in a way that makes rebuilding possible. But when you watch a tiny tentacled tube recover from damage and become a complete animal again, simple does not feel simple. It feels like the body is remembering what it is supposed to be. The seventh creature may be the strangest because it is only one cell, yet it behaves like a whole animal with a shape, a mouth, and a body plan. Stentor is a giant ciliate, often shaped like a trumpet when attached to a surface. Some species can reach lengths that are huge for a single cell. Under the microscope, it may stretch open like a blue-green horn, with the wide end facing the water. Along that rim, rows of cilia beat in waves, creating a feeding current. Tiny prey and particles spiral inward toward the cell mouth. Then, if disturbed, the whole trumpet can contract into a compact blob. One moment it is an elegant vase, the next it snaps shut like a frightened spring. This is the visual mystery of Stentor. We are used to thinking of a cell as a bag of chemistry. Stentor is a cell with architecture. It has a front and a back. It has a holdfast for attachment. It has a feeding apparatus. It has internal organization so precise that if parts are damaged, the cell can rebuild missing structures. There are no muscles like ours, and no brain deciding the shape. The instructions are built into the living cell itself, in its surface patterns, its internal fibers, and its genetic activity. It is one cell acting less like a dot and more like a city. And that is the real secret behind all 7 of these microscopic impossibilities. They are not weird because they break biology. They are weird because they reveal how much biology can do when the world is small. At our size, a glass shell sounds fragile. At diatom size, it can be armor. At our size, water is easy to move through. At copepod size, it is a thick, invisible landscape of pressure waves. At our size, drying out is death. For tardigrades and rotifers, drying can be a signal to fold life into storage. At our size, a bedroom is furniture and fabric. For dust mites, it is a humid forest of food. At our size, losing body parts is catastrophic. For Hydra and Stentor, rebuilding is part of how their bodies make sense of damage. A microscope does not just make small things bigger, it changes the rules of the story. A speck becomes an animal, a smear becomes a forest, a drop of water becomes a world packed with glass houses, wheel mouths, spring-loaded crustaceans, tiny arachnids, regenerating tubes, and single cells shaped like trumpets. The impossible look is real because these organisms are not designed for our world. They are designed for moss films, pond scum, dust fibers, and invisible currents. And once you see that, the strangest thing is not that they exist, it is that all of this can be happening in a place small enough to dry on your fingertip.